Actor and comedian Chris Rock has clapped back at this slap heard around the world in his new stand-up Netflix special called Selective, Outrage, referring to the incident where Will Smith slapped him at the Oscars last year after he commented about his wife Jada Pinkett Smith's hair. Let's take a listen to what he said.
Anybody that says words hurt has never been punched in the face. People like, did it hurt? It still hurts. Will Smith is significantly bigger than me. We are not the same size, okay? We are not. This guy, Will Smith does movies with his shirt off. You've never seen me do a movie with my shirt off. I got parents. And you know what my parents taught me? Don't fight in front of white people.
Rock's Netflix special has seemingly angered some people on Twitter. Carnegie Mellon University professor Uju Anya, who identifies as a feminist and anti-racist on her Twitter profile, said that Netflix keeps screwing over subscribers. They cancel hit shows people actually want to watch and give Chris Rock millions of dollars to prove that Will Smith was right to slap him. NBC News reporter Ben Collins said, got 14 minutes into the Chris Rock special before my subconscious took over, said, okay, that's enough, out loud, and turned my whole TV off. Pure animal instinct defending against hearing the same joke for the 8,000th time. My soul was dying and took control of my physical self. He added, truly shocking, and I didn't have high hopes. That's harsh. I didn't see it. What do you think, Brianna? Did you watch it? What should I think about it?
I watched it. Look. You saw a little bit of that setup there at the end. Most of the Will Smith stuff comes at the very end of the special. And his defense, I shouldn't say defense. He basically characterizes that as Will Smith is much bigger than me. It wasn't fair. It was inappropriate to do specifically in front of white people. And that's what a lot of folks on the internet took objection to. I'm one of them. It was very clear, I think, when the slap happened, that the objection that many people had with it was where it happened as opposed to the substance of what happened.
On the face.
Right. At the Oscars.
I know.
So, I mean, obviously it's not good for people to hit each other. I mean, I don't know that this is like preschool. Don't hit people. That goes without saying. But the level of outrage at what ultimately was like a slap that didn't leave any damage, and, the level of outrage, I think, had more to do with the fact that it happened at the Oscars and it was so inappropriate. And how dare you behave this way here, as opposed to the substance of it. And another thing that I think that people objected to about how Rock framed the issue was that instead of talking about why Will Smith slapped him, which is that he made this joke about Jada Pinkett Smith's hair. She's been suffering from alopecia. Will Smith shouts from the audience, "Get my wife's name out of your mouth." Mm-hmm. The joke continues. He goes on stage and he slaps him. Okay, instead of talking about that and defending his choice to talk about Jada Pinkett Smith's hair, saying, as he's done in the past, "Oh, I apologize, but I didn't know she suffered from alopecia." Those are things that he said over the course of the last year. Instead, in his special, he chose to say, this wasn't really about Jada Pinkett Smith. He doesn't mention anything about her alopecia or her hair. He doesn't talk about any of the things that precipitated the actual slap at the time. Instead, he says, oh, this is really about Will Smith feeling insecure about this very public marital drama that he and Jada Pinkett Smith had been involved in over the previous year, where they have an open relationship. She had a relationship with this younger man who was one of, I think, her son's friends, and they had talked about it on her TV show, her internet show called Red Table Talk. And Chris Rock argued that it was basically Will Smith using him to regain his manhood after being humiliated by his wife in that way. I don't think, my personal view is that I don't think that's a fair claim. That's not what happened at the Oscars. And I don't know. It felt for me watching it like a deflection for Chris Rock's own behavior, because at no point did he engage with the things that he said.
He told a bad joke. I don't care that he did that at all. I mean, those people are there to be skewered a little bit. Was it a little meaner than it should have been? Probably.
That's fine. But he could have said that. He didn't say, I was right to tell the joke. I didn't know about her alopecia. Will Smith behaved unconscionably. He didn't say that in the stand-up. He made it about this whole other thing, and what it came off as to me was him actually trying to reclaim his own masculinity after being humiliated like that on the stage.
Well, I don't know, but the things he said there aren't very... He said, "I'm weak. Don't hurt me." He was kind of making fun of himself and his lack of masculinity in a diffusing way.
That's not how it came up. So there's a version, and I talked with friends a lot about this. There's a version of this where the joke is like, "Man, it's I'm a little guy, and like it's pathetic for Will Smith to be beating up on a guy like me. Like no one expects me to be. There's a way to play on that in a way that is a little less, I think." It came off as almost excuse making. Like I didn't fight back because I'm so small. Like take pity on me. I think there's a way to play with it and to make a joke of oneself. Kevin Hart is so good at using himself as a bed of jokes for his size, for being so small. People can feel differently. Let us know in the audience what you think. But I thought that he came off as very defensive. Like he was trying to say, I'm not owned. But he was very much owned, and his anger and clear resentment in the special undermined some of the potential for humor there.
I don't know if there's potential for humor there. I mean, it was a wild thing.
Well, there has to be potential for humor. Otherwise, why are you bringing it up in a stand-up special?
Yeah.
There were some other issues too. I mean, it felt very much like the post-cancellation stand-up routines of a lot of folks who have gotten scrutiny in the public eye. Yeah,
well, you're making comments to it similar, because you also didn't like that she doesn't address it in a more apologetic way.
Yeah, or just don't address it. Like I don't need anybody to talk about something that happened a year, or in Roseanne's case, like 10, however many years ago. But Louis C.K. is an artist that I think is extremely funny, regardless of what I think about some of his behavior. But oftentimes when they come back, the first special is them just being angry. And it's more about them like expressing their resentment. I thought his return special
was pretty funny.
And all of that. And like, I understand they're allowed to be angry and to get their resentments out or say what they want to say, but my personal view is that it doesn't make for as good comedy as when they're talking about their comedy is being fueled by like jokes as opposed to resentment. And so even when he wasn't talking about the slap, as he wasn't for most of the special, Chris Rock was doing a little bit of that like older comedian shtick. I've got kids. My kids do crazy things. It's why these young people, I don't understand them. And a very kind of like Seinfeld kind of humor, which some people like, and that's fine.
Not me.
But I kept reflecting, when I was watching it with my friends, we were reflecting on the edginess of all these other Chris jokes that we've liked before, oftentimes in very similar issue areas, but he managed to find like this subversive, fascinating part of it, And all of that was missing, and it was really foregrounded how much of that was missing because some of the jokes came so close to other jokes that he has made, but there were just so much less. It was like that superficial observation with none of the substance.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, I think that much of comedy is that way to me. It's the superficial Seinfeld type stuff. So I don't find stand-up that funny generally. The exceptions are Chappelle, who I find hilarious, mostly, although I haven't liked all of them, and Louis C.K., who I slays me. Everything he says is funny to me. Well,
the other funny thing is that Chris Rock's whole stand-up was about like, I'm not the victim. The title is Selective Outrage, and he is mad that people tend to be mad at some things but not other things. And this was a lot of what just Dave Chappelle was getting at in his last special too. I would argue that Dave Chappelle was infinitely more successful at making his point because Dave Chappelle's comedy brought in all of these examples of where he has made jokes at the expense of black people, at the expense of women, at the expense of all kinds of historically marginalized groups. But why is it being treated differently when we're talking about trans people? And you can think that there's substantive differences between the status of trans people today, the legal onslaught under, et cetera, as compared to some of these other groups. But at least he was articulating an argument and bringing examples up. Chris Rock, by contrast, his whole thing was, I am not a victim. He said that repeatedly during the special. And the punchline of the special is, Will Smith victimized me. Mm-hmm. And it was like a weird lack of like self-awareness. Maybe it's okay if you were victimized, and there is a such thing as people who are victims and get victimized by bad things happening to them.
If you're struck
and
in
you're
the
allowed
face,
to be
you
mad
are
at it.
A victim.
But there's an obvious tension between this idea that everyone complains too much about everything, and everybody's sad about everything, and trigger warnings, and everybody's so sensitive. But also, let me talk about how you should feel really bad about me, a millionaire, for getting slapped in the face by another millionaire at the Oscars.
Yeah. All right, you did have thoughts on this. You promised me that you had enough thoughts for us to talk about this, even though I hadn't seen it yet, and that was correct. More Rising right after this. Stay with us.